All right, I think
We are live again.
that's wonderful. Thanks, Galen. Welcome back, everyone, to the resumed open meeting section of this Audit and Risk Committee meeting. Councillor Beck, there was a question that we parked where we felt that it might be helpful for the Chief Executive to answer. So would you mind just reminding us of the question so we can ask the Chief Executive for his response?
Yeah, thank you. I guess I was really exploring in order to gain complete understanding, and we made some progress, Gavin, in regards to COVID-19 and the deep dive report, specifically page 47, 3.2. I think we've established now that, as that opening paragraph says, is that very much the focus or the lens through which we arrived at our current positions is based on treating this as a health and safety risk. So we've applied the zero risk appetite, which has actually been set by council. The risk assessment in its scope focused very much on employees. In fact, there was a risk assessment of from a staff perspective, employee perspective, possibly contractor perspective, not customer or community perspective. Would that be fair?
Yes, it is fair. So, and let me just expand on that. So the risk assessment process is a risk assessment for the purposes of our responsibilities to our staff. It was the process we followed was that as prescribed by the government, which pretty much requires every organisation to undertake a risk assessment process. The questions we used to undertake that process were, I think there were 8 or 9 questions from WorkSafe. We used those, and there were 2 or 3 others that we added for more clarity around certain matters. And that formed the basis of the process that we followed. In my view, this is a health and safety matter to look after the well-being of people. So that's very much the way that we've seen it. It's very much the way that it has been pitched by WorkSafe as well. If you go on to WorkSafe's website, you can see more information from there around how they believe you should approach it. There has in recent times, like within the last few days, been some changes where they've now simplified the process to 4 questions. But within that, they have said that all risk assessments that have previously been done are valid, and you can choose whether you wish to use those or you wish to use the new ones. We see no reason to change the approach that we've taken in terms of the risk assessments that we undertook. What we did do was link the work that we had done with the risk assessments, and I apologise if I'm going over stuff that was covered earlier, but we linked the work that was done around risk assessments to business continuity issues, and also to risk appetite as well, which again has been something that's been debated by council. So what we've tried to do is to take this health and safety issue, give it a risk management framework, and see where it sits, and that was the outcome that we came to.
Yeah, and that's right, and your answers are entirely consistent with those given by your colleagues in your absence. And again, references to WorkSafe, references to Health and Safety at Work Act, and so on. It's very much an employment focus, an employment matter, and with a staff focus. And I guess when I contrast, and the point I was trying to make is that that the nature of this hazard is materially different and therefore questioning whether it needed a different lens, a different perspective. I reflected further on this when we had Lynn's report, for example, and she talked about the good work that's been done around driving behaviour in the past year, on-road behaviour, about asbestos, and there was one further matter as well, I don't recall now. And to me, the contrast is that we are, in fact, not, so violence in the workplace was the third one. We aren't, in fact, trying to solve the issues of violence when not at work. We might care deeply about our staff. We might have EAP systems in place to help and support people who on a personal level are going through issues, but we don't ultimately make policies for our staff when not at work, at home in the community, whether that be, exposure to asbestos when they drive in a personal capacity, not on council business, not in a council vehicle. We don't try and mandate around that. And yet for this issue, this is as a global pandemic. Everywhere you go, this hazard exists. And if I take an example from the UK, for example, now experiencing its fourth wave, health professionals, according to an article in The Guardian at least, health professionals are not catching COVID at work. They've solved PPE, they have the right processes in place, they are not catching it at work, they're catching it at home from their kids coming back from school or when they're out at the cinema or on public transport. That's where they're getting it. And I just have this, it's clear that we are through our singular lens, that we are now looking at this almost like a sort of a boy in a bubble. We're trying to put council employees in a bubble, and everybody else have to, the community and the facilities they've paid for, access is now being determined by our wish to protect the integrity of that bubble for council staff.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair, I disagree with that, and I did say this the other day. For me, what we are trying to do is we can't eliminate the risk. All we can do is minimise the risk, and that's what we're seeking to do with the best advice we have. In the same way that we don't control what happens when a member of staff leaves the building, leaves using our vehicle and drives their own vehicle home, I can't dictate what they do. I can't dictate what people do in this situation either, nor would I try to, because people have private lives. I can't control what they do in their private lives. This issue still remains around health and safety, but health and safety of our community as well. So having facilities which council has voted to require vaccine passports means that it offers control, it offers more certainty to staff, yes, but it also offers more certainty to the community as well. And I guess that's my point. So I know that councillors are hearing from people in the community that disagree with the decision, but equally, I don't believe you're hearing from people that actually would be disagreeing if you made a different decision. I guess that's my point. There are people, what we're trying to do is we're trying to protect anyone that comes into our buildings, be they a member of staff, be they a contractor, be they a member of the public, be they a vulnerable person. That's what we're trying to do. Well, that's what I understood you were trying to do.
And Mr. Chair, I'll, remembering the brevity note with which we started, I'll wrap it up at this point. But I am comfortable, and I voted for the position we've adopted because I think it is probably about right for the current orange traffic light setting we're in. But as I also flagged, this will be an ongoing conversation, I think, for us as a council, because I feel we've not we've not considered through enough lenses what happens in different times. And I think, Gavin, your comment that at a green light setting, the risk in the community actually is no different. So we need to think very carefully about whether to change any of our settings. That's the bit that I signalled the other day. I think we're getting increasingly out of step with what I'm reading the government to say through the official MOH guidelines, but also what our community are telling us. So I'm not unhappy about where we are right now. I think it's right. I voted for it. I'm really I guess signalling that there's many more conversations in this rapidly evolving space that we need to have. Thank you for the indulgence, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Gavin, for responding. All right, I think, folks, unless there are any other items of general business, we're at a point now where we can close. Am I right to say, Gayleen, that we'll be reconvening as a maybe wider group commencing at 1 o'clock this afternoon until about 2:30, is that correct? And that is a workshop that's being convened and led by David from KPMG. Excellent. All right. Well, look, since we are in the open meeting, I just wanted to echo on behalf of the committee the thanks that Councillor Beck so elegantly expressed to Kat for her work on the committee, and we hope that you have a fabulous time as you turn to a new chapter in your life, Kat. So thank you and good luck. And can I just also express best wishes to colleagues both among the officers and also amongst the committee for Christmas, and hopefully a happy and a healthy and somewhat more free 2022. But in the meantime, I think for at least some of you, we'll close off now, and I look forward to seeing some of you again at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.